Hi, Kenya.
You can start,
It,
Aaron.
it does seem like I'm able to record from here.
It's recording.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, you can begin the webinar.
I can begin the webinar. Thank you very much. Well, hello, everyone. I want to thank you for registering and joining me today for this workshop. I'd like to acknowledge the facilitators. And by the way, let me turn off the music, please. 1 second, let me turn off the music. Um, okay, okay. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops, my music is still on, right? Okay, I need it off now. Oh, well. Okay. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for your patience with me and thank you for joining and registering with this training program. If you don't mind, I'd like to share my screen at the moment. Okay. And I will go on to, okay, so I want to acknowledge the facilitators of this event, Dr. Daphne Gordon, the project administrator of the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center. Now, I have a problem with that word. I hope I'm not the only one with that problem. Now, this is from Suffolk County Community College, and her team, Jennifer Kenny, Kenya Harvey, and of course, I have assistance from the technical team. What's his name again?
Jay.
Kay. Thank you
Yes.
so much for your assistance. I appreciate all you do and for this opportunity. Now to all who registered, I welcome you again. And my name is Aret Essien, founder of Didi Fables. We will have the question and answer sessions at the end. However, because of the interactive nature of this and the participatory nature of our program, this workshop, I will entertain questions as we go along. I hope you don't mind that. There's also going to be a lot of individual writing exercises. There's going to be group work depending on how many we are. And there will be presentations because that's the key. That's the key to this program. And I do encourage all of you to willingly participate and challenge yourself in the exercises. No one is right. No one is wrong. It's all according to your own ability and that's all you need to do. Okay. So as we proceed, should we not have enough time to answer your questions, because I know there will be questions, please feel free to email me at Aret Essien, that's my full name, at aret-didifables.com. I promise you your questions will be answered. All right. Now, let's start with a self-introduction as usual. In 2 sentences, please give me your name, what you do, and what you expect from this program. I'd like to start with Nancy. Nancy C, can you please start? Tell us what you do and what your expectations are.
Hi, I'm not sure if I'm in the right program at the moment, but my name is Nancy Connolly. I have done home health aid and art based, and my expectations, I'm not sure what to expect, but thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm sure that, I don't know if you're aware that this is a storytelling, business storytelling program, how to tell your story and the story of your business. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Good. Now we would like to take Stephanie. Stephanie, you're with us. Can you please tell us in 2 sentences your name, what you do, and your expectations? Stephanie, if you can unmute yourself, we'll hear you. Hi, Stephanie. Okay, so we'll go over to Miriam. Miriam? Hi, Miriam. Okay, it does seem like either people are not unmuting themselves and so we can't hear them, but we will just move along. And as my own form of self-introduction, I know I've talked a lot about my own adventures in life, my failures and my successes, which have led me to this point of evolution, and I am still evolving.
Miss Arrett?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm sorry. Miriam said her audio isn't working, so well, she's not turning on her audio because her background is loud, but she put in the chat and I can read her intro to you.
Oh, sure.
All right. She says, my name is Miriam. I want to start a business selling hibiscus juice. Sorry, my son is making noise.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much, Miriam. I appreciate that. So back to my own self-introduction, which I have done several times, as I said earlier, I am still evolving. I'm still learning. I'm still changing. But for the benefit of those who really were not at the webinar, I don't know how many of you were at the webinar last week. I'll give you a sneak peek into my life. I studied theater arts and of course, storytelling at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where I received both my master's and doctorate degrees. I focused on storytelling to examine its effect on children and later its effect on adults. Now, with the positive results that I received and I encountered, I launched out to share the good news to the rest of whoever is interested. Tells how to tell your good story and give you the storytelling techniques that can assist you in all areas of endeavor. If it's in marketing, in your skills, your business, your presentations, your interviews, we do have a lot to cover today. So we're going to dive straight into the workshop itself, right? Now, storytelling. Storytelling is life. Storytelling is the reason we have history. And without storytelling, a lot will be lost. Think of it. Your business is a story in history itself. And this story will and must be told appropriately. So we're going to apply some of the techniques of storytelling for your business. Now, I love watching the children's channel a lot. I do. Now, how many of you know the children's network called Baby First? I don't know how many of you know, and I can't see your faces. I would have said, raise your hands if you know. If you know, thumbs up to you. Baby First, this program is titled, there's a program there on Baby First that is titled Shapes, 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 and all kinds of shapes are projected dancing to the tune of the shapes, shapes, shapes. And what they do is to arrange shapes in order. It could be, and I'm going to take a hypothetical arrangement, square, a circle, and triangle. They will repeat this several times. Square, circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle. They'll go on and on and on until then they stop. Square, circle, and then there's a blank. The children who have been following know and just fill in the blank triangle because the pattern has been established. Now, we will apply this concept in our study of the structure of business storytelling because it is deliberate. Now, a pattern is a series of actions or events that together show how things happen or how things are done. A pattern is an arrangement of lines or shapes, especially in a design in which the same shape is repeated at regular intervals over a surface. Now, I think this is the dictionary.com definition of pattern for us. Now, the other concept we're going to apply is principles. Principles, the basic truths about life, your values, which simply reflect how things work in the world. Example, you can't plant an apple seed and expect to reap oranges, right? Can that happen? Absolutely not. It's a principle in life. So we will apply these two concepts in our training, and we will explore the birth of your business, its purpose, its customers, and the strategies. We know that your businesses did not drop from the sky. And even if it was an inheritance, there is a story behind it. If there is a story behind it, which I believe there is, have you been telling these stories efficiently to maximize the expected outcome? And even if you have, do you believe that there is always going to be more? You don't have to be a professional storyteller. You don't have to be with all the stunts and tricks of the trade to share your story. It's just the sincerity that goes with it, your genuineness that sells your story. That's actually where we will focus on, and we will practice and practice and practice, of course. And at the end, which will be next week, and even this week, as we go along, we will have presentations. Now, I hope you came with your notebooks because I did advise that we come with our notebooks, all right? I did advise that we come with our notebooks. Now, the objectives include the ability for you to tell a good story. We will highlight how smart storytelling strategy can contribute to raising your potential, the values of your business. We will help you make sense of the world, communicate your values and beliefs. We will see how we can help you make your business think and feel and speak the way that data and numbers and presentation slides cannot. We will try to make you genuinely connect with your customers and help them believe in your business and what it stands for. Well, and then we will wrap your vision into the beautiful, captivating story that clearly communicates the story to the audience using the effective, heartfelt marketing strategy. Everything really must be heartfelt. But for today, we will cover the following topics. Sorry, my screen is moving up and down. We will cover the following topics: your business objectives, the why of your business corporate storytelling, the efficacy of storytelling itself, and creating your business story. This will be for today, because the next week we will have another subject. We will go into the different kinds of stories that your business will be telling. All right? So for now, do we have any questions? I've been talking. Does anybody have any questions for me at this moment? Any questions? Wow.
There's none in the
Nobody
chat.
has questions.
Not right now.
Not right now? Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on. So last week I did, after the webinar, I gave an assignment, a writing exercise. Let me not call it an assignment. It was a writing exercise. And I asked people to think of an experience you or someone you know has had that will make a good short story. We are starting at this level. It could be someone at work, or it could be in your own private life. Now, I want you to apply as much of the following questions in your story. I gave you all of this information last week, but I'm going to go over it. When you're telling this story or when you're writing this story, answer the question. Does your story answer the question, why? How does it answer the question, why? How specific is your question, is your story? Does it demonstrate how the world works or the principles? Now, while writing your story, can you see the pictures in your mind? Can you? Do you think your listeners will be able to remember and retell your stories? Are there any emotional moments that will inspire your listener to take action? Now, we're going to go into the story writing now. We're going to go into it right away. So I want you to take a moment to think again of an experience you or someone you know had that will make a good short story. So we just have about a few minutes to do this. A few minutes, right? Are we all writing? I hope we are all writing. We're busy writing, because we will ask, I'm going to ask for you to tell your stories. This is part of our exercises. We have to tell the story. And as I said earlier, do yourself the favor. Tell your story. Nobody is right, nobody is wrong, but answer those questions. Answer the question, why is this story important? How specific? Does it demonstrate the world, how the world works? And while writing, can you see the picture? I'll give you the time to tell the story. In the meantime, I'd like to give you some music just for a few moments to be able to write your story. Okay? Okay. So hopefully we have a story. Do we have a story? Does anybody have a story ready to share with us? Does anybody have a story to share with us? The story you've told, you've written? Can somebody share the story? I need you to take yourself seriously, please. Challenge yourselves. and tell a story that you've written. Nancy, can you? I'm going to volunteer you, Nancy.
It's
Yes.
funny, I didn't write one down, but I only thought of one story, but it was,
Sure. Go ahead and tell your story.
but I lived in Alaska and I used to go hunting I didn't hunt, and I was always afraid of bears. And the person I went with made fun of me for it. And he got charged by a bear. And he was able to, it sounds gruesome, but he shot it right before and it fell right by him. But it comes out in a different way when I'm not stumbling telling the story. But that's the only story I could think of, but it sounded so like morbid. So that's the story I had. Thank you.
Well, that's a good story. That's a very good story. It has the why, it's specific, and it demonstrates how certain principles you've got to, if you're challenged by something that is going to challenge your life, you've got to also stand up for it. Somebody was there to assist. Great, it's a good story. Now,
Thank you.
Miriam. Oh, Miriam has a problem. How about Stephanie? Miriam, if you can write your story on the chat, we will read it. Is it possible? In the meantime, Stephanie, do you have a story? Stephanie, did you write any story? Okay. Now, okay, so we did not have that story. So let me now assume that as business owners or, yes, professionals, you have everything in place to start your business. There is the need for your product. You have the expertise and the credibility to launch your venture, which is the experience. You have your resources, you have your customers, you have your model, and you're ready for your business. Now that you're ready for your business, you have to now tell the story for your business. We just started earlier only to tell little stories to see how we can tell a story. Now it is your business story. And I'm aware that since you were not at the last webinar, I need to recall some of the structural features of a story for you. A story must have a structure, first of all, which means that there must be time. A story takes place in time. And I think I have that in your handout. If you see your handout, you can refer to it. The story takes place at a time, a certain time. It could be the other day, or just this week, or just this morning, or last year about this time. That's a time. A story takes place in a place. Oh, I was in my bedroom, or we were in the boardroom in a meeting, or I was at the beach when whatever happened. Then there must be an event that happened within the time and the place. That event, along with the linking phrases such as and then, and because of, or but, and therefore, are usually very interesting to link phrases. So that event happens. Now, there must also be a protagonist, the main character, who faces, for instance, Nancy told us the story of the person she went with who was able to handle the bear, right? That may be the main character. There must be a protagonist who faces and overcomes a challenge. Nancy, you had a challenge there, right? And that person assisted you to overcome that challenge. Now, In the story, especially in your business story, the protagonist does not have to be human. Sometimes it could be ideas in conflict with one another. So, but if you hear some name followed by what they did, you are listening to a story. Or if you hear an idea and a counter idea, you are listening to a story. Stories have people doing things. And a story is a promise to share something the audience does not know. Now, there must be anticipation when a story is being told. Now, I'm going to give you an opportunity now to start writing some connection story. And the connection story is a personal story. It is an anecdote that you can use immediately after you've met someone new. And this anecdote illustrates who you are, what you do in an entertaining way. So I'm going to ask you, what 3 things happened in your lives that have shaped you to who you are today? Personal, but particularly related to the business events, or your pursuits in life, or your ambitions, or your goals. This is a writing event. Now, I know you have your writing tools. We're going to write the connection story to connect us, to connect you with me and connect all of us together. Now, I'm going to give you a little tip. In writing a connection story, and if you're trying to rally people around your cause, which is what we're trying to do now, you need to tell your story along the lines of these universal human themes or needs, instead of focusing too narrowly on your own particular issue. Now, in other words, what I'm saying is, what led you into business? Or what led you to this point? Why did you decide to start your business? Why did you decide to go back to school? Why did you change your course of study? Why are you where you are? You need to write a compelling story that will cause me and the others around us to desire and be convinced about your product, your ambition, your endeavor, and your pursuit. Now, include the elements of the story we talked about earlier. For example, you or someone else, or even the idea, can be the protagonist or the antagonist. Remember, there is always a conflict, or there is always the desire that leads to a new decision. You should write down your story based on your own conviction, your own belief in what you set out to do. Your objective is to convince your listener, which will be the rest of us, and to connect us with your desires. And the most powerful stories appeal to universal human needs. I said this earlier, such as your drives, your emotions, and your experiences. And as example, we all relate to the desire for freedom, right? Everybody wants freedom. We all relate to the desire for recognition. We all relate to the desire for connection, for love. If you are trying to rally people around your cause, you need to tell your story along the lines of any universal human needs. Your story does not need to be complex. However, brilliantly telling your simple, exquisite, mundane story, literally like the day-to-day drudgery that you go through, raising your kids, getting your job done, meeting deadlines, keeping your employees engaged, staying afloat, maintaining your health. These are all universal human needs that serve to show that we are all the same. These actually increase the sense of solidarity and connection. So this is what we will need you to think about and include in your connection story. Now, instead of trying to convey the entire story itself, just focus on a few key moments or pieces that can serve as a reminder of the whole experience. So now we have 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write your connection story. Remember, it is on what three things happened in your lives that have shaped who you are today, personal or work events that led you to this point in your business. Let us start writing. You have 5 minutes, and I'm going to give you some music while you are right. All right? And I'm going to turn on my timer to make sure that we are keeping to the time. All right? It's not quite 5 minutes yet, but I'm sure that somebody has a story ready. If anybody has their story ready, you can raise your hands If if your story is ready, please raise your hands and I'll appreciate that.
Harriet, there's a story in the chat.
I'm sorry, I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen.
We have a story from Miriam in the chat.
I'm sorry. Oh, we have a story from Miriam. Oh, great. I cannot see the story. I can't see the chat, but I will appreciate if that story can be shared for the rest of us to see.
Yes, just let me know when you're ready and I'll read it to you.
Thank you. I'm just trying to give some others the opportunity to round up their story. In about 30 more seconds, we will round up and then we will hear the story from Miriam. Okay. All right. All right, I can stop now. Okay, we'd like to hear the story from Miriam, if it's possible, please. Thank you. Is that Jennifer? Thank you. Jen, thank you so much.
You are welcome. So Miriam said, I had been a teacher for 15 years in my country in West Africa. In the beginning, I did like teaching. Through my time, I decided to set my own industry to be independent. In 2016, when I came here, I've still kept the idea of running my own business. I then chose to run a juice business, which is making hibiscus juice. This juice is well known in my country and it has many benefits. I am sure many persons know it here, but I want to show people through my industry how beneficial it is by popularizing it.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful story because it caters not just to your own needs, but to the bigger community. That's excellent. It's a great story. Thank you, Miriam. Appreciate that. And Jennifer, thank you for reading that for us. Nancy, are you ready with your story?
Hi. I just wrote, well, 3 things that have shaped who I am today. My father, who I was very close to, a hero, friend, and role model to me, passed away when I was 16. That event caused me to travel, understanding how short life was. But it also interfered with me going to college and having a career. 10 years ago, after spending my life moving around, I asked God to show me how to be rooted, and I developed an illness, a rare vasculitis. I ended up working in home health aid to have good insurance, and it was private, and people came in who weren't safe or vaccinated, and 2 times I got the virus. And I left the job, and with my time, I've been painting on rocks, angels, and people started asking if they could buy them. And it's mostly the design. It's not very cost effective because each one takes a long time, but in the end, they're a rock, so I can't really charge a lot, but I considered how to duplicate designs and make like scarves and cards, but that's just a budding thought, and I don't really have the finances to even start it. So in the meantime, I've just been doing the art regularly, and that's my story.
That's
Thank
a very
you.
beautiful story.
Thank
That is
you.
a very moving, a moving story, a beautiful story that will sell at any point. Now, it has a universal theme because it covers what we all desire. good health, right?
Yes.
We all desire that. So it does touch on, it has an emotional aspect to it too. It touches on the human life and what is the essence of life. So you do have a good story. Miriam has a great story too. I don't know if there's anyone else here who has a good story. We have some beautiful stories here, and we will have some more beautiful stories to tell you later. Is there any other participant here who has a story to tell us? I don't want to overflog the two participants who are here with me. I don't know if Kenya is going to participate or she is just going to just listen through it. Kenya, do you have a story?
Well, my story is, I guess I would say, going to school and getting my degrees really opened up areas in my life that, and also working with entrepreneurs have opened up areas in my life where I'm also thinking about starting a business. I actually have a business. It's a hair selling human hair, beauty supply business. I haven't done much with it, but I am actually in the process of finding my niche, because I think that business, might not be viable right now. So I'm just in a holding phase.
That's
And
a lovely story.
and I love both stories. Miriam and Nancy both told great stories. And I'm just, really on to listen. So you guys, thank you for sharing those stories. And I look forward to hearing more great stuff. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you two have a great story because you're looking to start your business to serve the bigger community. Whatever you do, so long as it is not personal only to you and it is to serve the bigger community, humanity and its needs, yes, you have a story to tell. Now, there was a company I desired to work with some time ago. I'll tell you a few stories. I desired to work when I started my business earlier. I prepared what I thought was a powerful PowerPoint presentation, listen, and I thought I was going to wow the executive council. I had all my data to accompany my presentation. My PowerPoint looked sophisticated and very colorful. So when I got there, I read my PowerPoint bullets without any story. The points were on point. The data, very correct. I missed out on something. At the end of the 1 hour long presentation, I asked for questions like I'm asking now. No one had any questions for me. The CEO simply said to me, "We'll get back to you." Now, can someone explain to me what happened there? Can someone explain what happened or what you think happened in that instance? Yes. I need someone to help out. We're going to be conversational. I need the conversation to flow. Yes, Nancy?
Because it didn't have a substance of a story to engage the people. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely, you are right. You are absolutely correct. I did not connect with them. I did not have a story to tell. I just read the bullet points and that was it. No story to move them, to motivate them to want to do business with me. And that was a serious black belt that cost me a lot. But you know what? One of the things I did was not to give up. One thing I learned is that even my black belts of failure taught me a lesson I can never forget. Don't you ever discard any of your experiences, good or bad. They each add value to your life depending on your own perspective. Now, let me note that instances of storytelling do lack a lot, but they abound in our lives, with our colleagues, with our customers, with our employees, the people we meet. There are stories. We're going to address them as we move along. Now, from this experience of mine and others, how would you define business or corporate storytelling? How would you define business or corporate business as storytelling? How would you? Let's have a definition. We're discussing, we're talking, we're chatting. Now, everybody feel free to express themselves. Challenge yourselves to say something. Yes, respond.
I was just thinking how the Apple computer, there were originally two men, and that Steve Jobs was actually just great at telling the story about it and basically selling it. And the other man was kind of the brains behind it. But anyway, being able to have charisma or this or that, half of it, the person might not even know what they're buying, but if they're drawn in, I've never been super great at selling, but I just thought of that type of story.
You're absolutely right. Steve Jobs did the right thing. He knew how to sell. He knew how to tell the story of the business, and he sold, and he did it. You're absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting that you chose Steve Jobs, though, the Apple company. Now, and you are correct. Let's now take it a little personal. Let's go to our own business, corporate business story. We're going to write our own, even if you haven't started your business and you intend to. There must be a story in your head. I want us to write a corporate business story. And in writing your business story, I want you to not forget one thing. Even if you have no employees, write your story as if you have employees. And you need your employees to know the purpose and the principles of your business, as well as understand why you are taking a big decision. Now, this time, you have to focus. You're writing your corporate business. Believe that you have employees, and you're trying to get your employees on the same page with you. Now, why am I saying this? I recall when Ebola first presented in hospitals. The state infection control had to do some work, and they worked very closely with hospital administrators to train them on the new approach to handling all the body fluids, the blood, and related waste. It took rehearsals upon rehearsals by every department, including even the police department. I even had to be involved in the training sessions, the donning and the doffing of the protective gear. The effect? Everyone complied because the groundwork was already laid. The purpose, the steps, the principles were clear. Everyone followed those steps. The disease was controlled. And it's the same thing when you are telling your corporate business story. You've got to be specific. Remember, we said that specificity. Lay down your purpose. Every single objective that you want your employees to know. Now, people do need story skills to influence others, I understand, and also to inspire people. But as I said earlier, you don't have to be a professional storyteller. Very often, to maximize our resources in training, if you worked in an atmosphere where it's a very big corporate body, they have trained the trainers, and sometimes those trainers themselves are not so skilled in the storytelling to be able to influence and inspire their colleagues. Now it becomes the responsibility of the main trainer, who hopefully is skilled in the art of storytelling, to coach the other trainers to apply the art to sustain interest and to build understanding. Now, it's important now to have a systematic approach to finding and sharing your successful stories. Now, we know that not all stories fit into every situation. And as such, business owners need to reach out into the past to search for stories that resonate with the different situations they want to address. The stories do exist. Every day you encounter stories as business owners, but you have to do the homework to fetch them out. You need to have a notebook where you write all your stories as they occur. Write them down. Make sure you apply some of those elements we discussed earlier in crafting your own story. You know, the story structure, beginning, middle, and end. Remember that? Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every story has a time frame, has a place where it happened, and has the events, has the characters or the ideas, right? You have to remember all that and put them into your story as you craft it. Now, it doesn't end there. These stories have to be shared. All right. Now, I know you're still going to write, but I remember when I started with a particular organization. We used to be given 1 week long orientation as new employees. A lot of information from different departments were passed on to us, few of which we remembered. After that came the departmental orientation, which sometimes would last as long as 1 month, depending on the department. They were not memorable at all, I can tell you. It was just a rundown of information and handouts of the do's and don'ts of the department. To remember any of this information, really, I needed to refer to the handouts if I had to remember them. Now, in recent years, new employees orientation has been shortened to about 2 days, and every department is squeezed into these 2 days. Can you imagine 2 days as opposed to the 5 days? And employees receive the bare minimum information about business, just supplemented with the handouts. So if you ask an employee for the mission statement of their workplace, they have to refer to a handout. Now, can anyone explain the impact of this kind of sharing approach? The impact it would have on any business, where you used to have 5 days of training to take time and explain everything, and now you have shortened it to 2 days, where little or nothing, no information is given. What impact do you think it will have on the business? What impact do you think it will have on the business? Can somebody share with us, please? Somebody share? Jennifer, can I volunteer you?
You got a chat. I just want to read
Okay.
on for you. So Nancy said, "Hi, everyone. I have to sign off at 8 p.m. I apologize. I wasn't sure I can access your DD Fable email or connect with Eric on Facebook. Thank you for the program and thank you for being kind and inspiring.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate and I do understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thank you.
Nancy. Thank you. So Jen, can you help us explain what impact you think such an approach would have on any business? The impact of shortening the orientation period from 5 to 2 days. What impact do you think it will have?
Well, if you're shortening the orientation, I do think you do have to put more, information in a shorter time period. However, I do think that overall, the development would be helpful because, now you're spending more time being productive, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. It does make sense. Thank you. Thank you for that info and for sharing. Kenya, do you have any further information to add on to that? Kenya?
I don't. Thank you, Harriet.
Okay, but thank you though. Jennifer, thank you for what you just expatiated on. As a business owner or individual with aspirations in any endeavor, I want you now to write your own corporate business story. You may not have started your business yet. You may be on the verge of starting and not starting, but I need you to write your business story to present to your employees. Assume that you have employees that you want to inform about your business and a decision you've taken. Or it could be that you want to sell your business to some clients, some customers, or you are a student and you want to talk to your professor, or you're going on an interview. I need you to write kind of your own story, maybe to your employer. That story, again, should aim at explaining the purpose and principles of what you expect to do or say. You have to take a position, a decision, and you desire to influence and inspire us, your listeners, your audience, especially with your stance. Now, to do this, in other words, have a specific message, focus on getting your message across. You do not have to explain a lot to the audience, to all of us, to understand what is happening. Keep your message very tight. Don't try to cover any aspect of your story. Don't try to cover every aspect of the story. Have a specific message. Again, make your audience the hero. Remember these points. You're not going to be the hero. Make your audience, those listening to you, the hero. And then you become you play the supportive role. Ideally, your clients or your customers have something they already care about, and you have the particular take on meeting that need that they care about. So we know that the what's or the need is already shared. We all share it. Now, what is unique about you is the how that you bring to the table, that you add to the conversation. So let your audience know that they are your team. I'm giving you all of these to prepare you because I'm going to expect to get some of these back as we listen to your story. And one great way to do this is to show what contributions you have or intend to make to the society at large or your community. And that should be where we are focusing on. Sometimes you may not be able to show your audience or your client what they care about because it's too specialized. if we are going into the medical field, you may not be able to show, but you can still include them by showing how the results of what you are working on can support what they consider important. Again, remember, you are considering your audience, your listeners, your customer. They are more important. It's essential that you understand what's important to your audience. And you need to understand the kind of messages that your audience like. Let the rest of the organization tell your story. Once you tell your employees, the rest of your organization will tell your story. And remember, the best stories, however, connect to our humanity. The best stories connect to our humanity. They speak to us in a way that is inspiring without being preachy, In fact, the best stories don't say much at all. Instead, they are told in a way that lets the events speak for themselves. They connect with the unspoken ties that make us human and help us relate to one another, no matter what community we are a part of. So we want to tell this great business story now. And this story must be felt from the business point. I'm going to give you a story of mine, and I hope you're ready for it. It's a little lengthy, however, but I'm telling you this story because I want you to have something at the back of your mind when you are writing your own story. Now, in the summer of 2004, I bought a condo by the beach. My desire was to take a walk on the beach, daily walk, as part of my daily exercise based on my doctor's advice. I did that for the summer. I would generally walk briskly for about 30 to 35 blocks back and forth within an hour. Now, I thought that was very great. But later I realized that there were people who were running, not on the boardwalk, but by the sandy beach. This was more challenging. So I decided I would take the challenge and walk briskly on the sandy beach. Wow, what an experience that was. I barely walked one block when I started panting for air. I was so tired, so I decided to slow down and take my time. Boy, did I do myself much favor by walking on the sandy beach. I noticed what I needed to notice. Shells of different sizes and colors, some pure white, others gray, and yet others a mixture of both colors. These were so attractive that I picked up a few of them, and then at that moment, I knew that that was the end of my boardwalk. What would happen to my daily exercise? I asked. My health? Then I thought to myself that all my daily walk on the board never made me pant for breath as much as this one block walk on the sand. So I decided I'll walk 10 to 15 blocks on the sand, as well as do what I love doing, picking shells. So I began my sand walk. I learned to observe the ebb, that's the outgoing phase when the tide drains away from the shore. That was when I would go shell hunting and sand walking. Oh, I did this every day and became so addicted to shells as I admired the various kinds of shells and the underwater life. Oh, but having accumulated so much of it, I wondered what I would do with them until a notion came to my mind. Wash them, sanitize them, treat them, design them, and then you can sell them. Huh. The next most important question to me was, how do I sell them? How do I sell them? So create a need. Create a need, I said. Well, what need? Can these shells be useful at home and at work? Can it assist clear the clutter on some desks, like the paper clips and the paper, yes? Or at home? Can these be some jewelry holder for men and women? Can they be soap dishes to hold soap for those who still use bar soaps? Or can they just be miscellaneous holding placements or just decorative pieces for the center tables? If so, there is a need. And there's a need to tell the story of the artwork. And that's what I did. I applied the story to shells. She sells seashells on the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. And if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells. And that's all I needed to do. And I believed in what I did. And you too can believe in yourself. And in turn, your customers will believe in you. Now, the rest of the story about the shells, I will tell you later. But now, here are the shells. And this is how they were sold. Now, I'm going to give you 5 minutes now. Another 5 minutes to go into your breakout rooms now. And you have this 5 minutes to coin your own story. I gave you the story, that lengthy story. It could be abridged, made shorter. We want you to coin your own story using the above premise. You also have you'll have an additional 5 minutes to share your story in your group. We may make it a little shorter because of time. And you will have the opportunity to correct one another. Oh no, we're not many enough to go into the breakout rooms. No, we're not many enough to go into the breakout room. So we will not need the breakout room, but we're going to write a 5-minute story. Sorry, a short story. It's not a 5-minute story. I'm giving you 5 minutes to coin your own story, your own business story. Now, to coin it, I need you to refer to the handout that I gave you for guidance. Okay, you have 5 minutes to share. You'll have 5 minutes to write, and then share your story with the rest of us. Okay, so everybody, if we're ready, let's start writing our story. I'd like to welcome Main Camera. Main Camera, I'd like to welcome you. for the sake of time, I would like to shorten this session for this writing and proceed to the next moment, and which is to hear from you, hear your own, hear the corporate story that you have written. And I'd like someone to volunteer. Can someone volunteer to read the corporate story that they have written? And that corporate story encompasses all that we talked about. Yes. Can somebody volunteer?
I heard.
Yes. Maine. Hi, Maine. Hi, Maine. How are you
My
doing?
name is
Good.
Solomon.
I welcomed you.
Make
It's good
that
to
change
see
really
you.
quick.
So can you volunteer your corporate story for us?
Yes, yes. All right, so it starts off like this. Solomon likes climbing mountains, not literally, because the closest thing to a mountain I've encountered is my snowed-in car from a snowstorm. Needless to say, I like a challenge. If I did not see my first calendar invite, I would have not been inspired. Wielding this Excalibur, I would set up leadership meetings, attend the same, and practice the latter, and set up lunch dates with those I intended to learn from. Until I started to develop favorites, wing spots and Asian fusion were always the great, but the moral of the story is that some of the best food spots were stagnated at hole-in-the-wall status, getting less exposure than an ice cream truck on a sunny day. The problem that I faced was that the software that was used to share these calendar invites was to be used to organize and plan for the business meetings. Personal and local events were not made to harmonize together due to difficulty of use and other latent security issues. To make this software program, I had to have deep knowledge of the workings of how memory is stored on progressive web apps of this generation of technologies, which led me to speak to other experienced IT and engineering minds. Many individuals gave me advice from varying perspectives on where to start. With the guidance of where to start, I was able to apply myself and build out a repository of portfolio items. The next biggest obstacle was convincing creative minds to become like minds towards the fabrication of the end product. To surmount this obstacle, I organized a team of designers and developers to throw out a task of creating a better time slotting form of communication. Business owners who looked like me were able to get great reviews from repeat customers, but never tasted the fruit of expansion, e.g. catering any event. As a local business, these consumers during lunchtime came from similar starting points. I came to the conclusion that these small business consumers would collectively lead the influence for expansion into a larger audience. The vision only became tangible after two other individuals who possess talents in arts and talent in web development came into my life. Proving the need for a market for market research is difficult when not speaking directly to owners of each specific type of business. I intend to activate the connections I have to conduct case studies within the academic ecosphere to prove the mechanism of action and usefulness of this approach to distributing student equity and improving student engagement. Through this, the whole ecosystem of student and supporting businesses, as well as faculty, can begin the highly useful custom of providing constructive criticism, feedback, and structured leadership as a product.
Excellent. That is excellent. Now, I don't know if anybody could help us there to see some of the structural elements that Mr. Solomon, right?
Solomon, yes.
That's Solomon, right? That Mr. Solomon included in his corporate story. First, I know he had the purpose. The purpose was there. And of course, he introduced what he was doing in software, right? And there was a conflict. There was a conflict immediately. There was a conflict, and he tried to find ways to overcome the conflict. Those were obstacles on his way. And that is the essence of letting you connected with us. You had a beginning, you had a middle, there is an end, and yet there is more to be done in the future. And it is not just a personal issue, it is a universal need. So you didn't just address something you needed for yourself. It is something others will need. So you did cover as much of the grounds as we needed. I don't know, does anyone else have something to add onto what I have said so far as concerning what Solomon did? Does anybody have something else? Jennifer, do you have, or Kenya?
All right, I wanted to ask you, as
Yes.
far as I asked this question before. I want to find a way to, like you said, make the story as concise as possible. And herein lies the issue, because either I can go about it in a way of explaining it from the end user perspective, or I can tell a story of how I came to build up a team and the vision.
Mhm. Yes, of course. And as I said earlier, you don't have to tell the entire history. Yes, the story can be abridged, just like my story that I told, it could be abridged. We'll just have to focus on the pertinent points, the key points. Those are the things that will sell. And that we can also address when I work one-on-one with you. I can work one-on-one with you to make that story a little shorter at the end of this session, if that is okay with you. Or if you prefer, next week's session, I do offer 1 extra hour at the end of the session to work with individuals to make their stories either shorter or work on it to develop it to a point where they can say, yes, I think I have a great corporate story. All right, we can do that together. But generally, that was a good story you have, and we can work on it
as well,
too.
if you would
I'm
like.
sorry?
The latter portion of this meeting, it is already 7 minutes to the cutoff time, but I do have time past that to work on this as well, if you
Okay.
permit.
Okay, that will also then depend on our hosts, and we will request if they can grant us some time to go over this together as we work together. Okay, we will do that now. But thank you so much for sharing, Solomon. I appreciate your contribution. Now, I hope that everybody here has a hang of how to write your business corporate story. You know exactly what to do. You've got your purpose together and all the nitty-gritty ideas together. Now, let's watch a quick animation that I have for you. I have a quick animation that I want you to watch.
The ants and the grasshopper. One bright day in late autumn,
Can you hear?
a family of ants were bustling about the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had
Yes.
stored up during the summer. When the starving grasshopper, his fiddle under his arm, came up and humbly begged for a bite to eat. "What?" cried the ants in surprise. "Haven't you stored anything away for winter? What in the world were you doing all last summer?" Well, I didn't have the time to store up any food. Whined the grasshopper. I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone. The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. Well, making music, were you? Okay, very well. You made the music, now it's time to dance. And so they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on with their work.
Yes. Well, that's the story of the ants and the grasshopper. I brought this story in deliberately because I want to see, are there any principles from this story that could be incorporated in your business story, in your own life story, or even in your aspirations? It is very important and critical to notice and be aware of stories that are being told all around you daily. You need to be sensitive daily to the stories you yourself are telling, because you are a story that is being read by others. You know, some people give themselves an hour a day to reflect on the day's events, and that enables them capture what happened in course of the day. You can ask yourself, what stood out for me today? I'm trying to get my bank of stories. What stood out for me today? Did I hear any good stories today? Did I read any good stories today? Now, reading good stories does not mean carrying a book. You could be reading a good story by the people you meet, the contacts you're making. Those are good stories you are making. You are reading. You're reading people as you're connecting with people daily. Okay, now you have to develop a keen eye to discern the stories around you and tell them to engage, influence, inspire the people around you. We don't have too much time on our hands. I wanted us to take time now to write down what stood out for you. You've had a whole day ahead. What stood out for you today as a story? Did you hear any good story? Did you read any good stories by the people you contacted? If you remember when we had the webinar, we mentioned that there are 3 buckets from which you can draw your own story from. Unfortunately, I cannot give you the time to write those stories, but your stories, remember we said 3 buckets are your stories, other people's stories, and stories from other sources such as fables and parables. Those are the 3 sources that you can draw from when you're telling your stories. Now, here is something I call, and I need to be able to give you this, the hierarchy of stories. There are stories and stories, but not every story is a great story. And I know that we are running out of time, but please, can you indulge me with these stories, please, for this moment? Here is what I will describe as the hierarchy of stories. Now, the hierarchy of stories, number 1, a story describes what happened, just describes what happened. Let me give you an example. When I arrived at work today, I saw Jonathan cleaning the windows, and shortly after that, I opened my door. I saw the EMS personnel wheeling in a patient into the hospital. As soon as I entered my office, my phone rang, and it was my boss asking to see me immediately. Well, that is a simple story of what happened, the type you like to give to the police as a police statement, right? Now, here is the same story that helps you see what happened. Now, please mark the difference. It will make you see what happened. Now, when I arrived at work today at 6 a.m., housekeeping staff were already working hard to keep the hospital clean. Jonathan was cleaning the glasses. Tom was scrubbing the floors. And just as I made my way through these activities, I saw an EMS staff rushing in with a patient on a wheelchair straight to the emergency room. Then I quickly opened the door to my office, and I barely dropped my bag when my phone rang. And guess who? It was my boss. He wanted to see me immediately. Does anybody notice the difference between the first story and this story, the second story? I would wish I could give you the time to tell me the difference between the first and the story, but you could virtually see what was happening in the second version of the story. Now, the third version, when you want to tell a great story that helps you feel what happened. And that is the essence of storytelling. We've got to be able to tell our stories so that people listening feel the story. Feel the story. Now, the same story. Now, here's how it goes. When I arrived work today at 6 a.m., it was cold, and windy, and chilly. I saw Jonathan, the housekeeping staff, outside in his heavily hooded jacket, cleaning the windows that had been smeared with falling snow mixed with salt. He could barely maintain his straight gait as he fought with the wind and other flying objects. I quickly ran inside through the sliding doors. Oh, what a relief it was to feel the warmth that was inside. Then I saw Tom scrubbing the floors from the mess that was made by the incoming staff and the patients. As I went through the hallway, I began to feel the warmth, and I was tempted to take off my jacket, but no. I said to myself, I'd rather unbutton my jacket till I get to my office. And just then, I was brushed on my hip area by a moving object. And I suddenly realized that the EMS staff were rushing a patient on a wheelchair straight to the emergency room. I said to myself, I hope someone can save that life quickly. As I opened the door to my office, I barely dropped my bag when my phone rang. I couldn't even take off my coat. Guess who was on the line? You said it, and you're right. It was my boss who wanted to see me. Now, I want to ask you, were you able to feel that story? Were there emotions attached to that story? That is what makes a difference in a story that is a great story, a story that is felt. I was to give you 5 minutes to write your own great story. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time, but we are going to continue this great story in the next week's presentation, because everybody should be able to practice telling their great corporate story with feelings, because we've told them, yes, we told them, but we are going to now tell our great corporate story. And Solomon, you will tell your great corporate story and add the feeling aspect to it. All right? We will do that together because our time is almost up. But please, I need you to take a little time to make sure you do some exercises of writing your own personal story. Make sure you engage your audience consciously. Make sure you achieve the ultimate goal of successfully transforming your customers into who you want them to be as you tell your story so they can buy your product. What is important is to tell your story normally as you talk. and you will practice it and practice it. We will go into this sharing of your story. We will go into the methods of sharing your story. But for now, I need you to practice writing your story from different points of view. A simple story, a story that can be seen, and a story that one can feel. The same story. That is the exercise I want you to please engage in this week before we meet again next week. But today's workshop, we focused on corporate storytelling, the efficacy of storytelling, creating your own story, the buckets of stories. Next week, we will go over the different kinds of stories, because there are different stories that are available that you can tell within your company or your business or your expected business if you haven't started one. We will go into story sharing techniques and we will practice. And while practicing, I encourage you to please talk to your audience like as if they're your best friends. That's what it is. Talk to them as if they're your best friends. You will connect with them, and that will make it easy for them, for your story to be very powerful. Now, it goes without saying that you need to completely relax and show your personality at its best. All right. Now, I know that I would love to take some further questions. I'd like to take some further questions, but
I have a quick question before we sign off.
yes, please.
I want to know if the
I'm
participants.
sorry, may I please know who I'm speaking with, if you don't
This is
mind?
Jennifer.
Hi, Jenna. Yes.
Hi.
Thank you.
So the participants who weren't able to make it tonight, would they be able to jump in next week for that session?
Yes, they can jump in. What I would do would be to give them a quick, brief summary of what we've gone through this week. All right. I will guide them into what we are going to do next week based on what we did. I'll give them a quick, brief, kind of a review for everybody. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
All
Anything
right.
further? Yes. Solomon?
I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome, Solomon. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. I want to say thank you to everybody for all your contributions. And so we've come to the end of the workshop for today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and many others next week, November 2nd at 7 p.m. We are going to also have an extra hour next week to assist us put together a proper story, business story. Today, we've gone through the rudiments of it. Okay, so we will cover up everything next week. And I hope you had a great, I hope we were able to share a bit of what we have with you. And I hope you have something to take away for today. Next week, we will put everything together and tighten everything. All right. Thank you all, and a week. Thank you.